Welcome to the Anger Solution, Module 2. Today we're going to learn about the 5 levels of anger. So anger is more than one emotion. And what we're going to learn about here is that anger rises with intensity. The word anger is used to define a whole range of emotions. When people say they become angry, they are likely talking about two totally different things, because anger can start very mild and then begin to build up. And the more intense the anger, the more intense the feeling of anger, the more intense the emotion of anger, the more likelihood of having a negative anger response. All anger is not the same. See, you may be angry that your daughter spilled her milk off the table, and you may even say you're angry when someone crashes into your car. But clearly, these are two different feelings, at least in their intensity. So think about this and describe your anger in these situations. How angry would you consider yourself being over spilt milk spilt on the floor? Or how angry would you be if someone pulled out in front of you and caused you to smash your car? Do you think those would be the same feelings? Probably not. So we're going to identify 5 levels of anger emotion. And in learning to solve your anger reaction problems, there's a couple things you need to be able to do. Now remember, again, we're talking about two sides of anger, an anger emotion and an anger reaction. And to identify and solve your anger reaction problems, you need to first of all be able to identify your anger. You got to be able to look at it and see, yes, this is what it is. This is how angry I am. This is what level of anger that I am on. And secondly, you need to be able to verbalize just how angry you are. You need to be able to put it in words so that you can tell someone how angry you are on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And we're going to look at this scale and the 5 levels of anger. The first level of anger is what we call annoyance. It's a mild form of anger that most people are able to handle it well. But if you're a person with anger reaction issues, this could be the match that lights the fuse. So we really need to understand it, evaluate its importance, and do something about it before the fuse can be lit. Some other words that may be associated with annoyance are words like irritated, aggravated, bugged, and bothered. It's those little things that get under your skin. It's that twinge just under the surface when something isn't how you planned it or something isn't working out how you expected, and that fuse gets lit. Let me tell you a little personal story about how annoyance lit that fuse for me once. I was staying in a hotel not long ago, and I was staying on an extended stay. I was there for like 3 months. Basically, I was living there. And I had been there so long that I pretty much had my own parking place. People pretty much stayed away from my spot, and I always had my spot. But as hotels are, people come and people go. But most of the time, my parking spot was available to me in a very convenient spot. Until one day, when I pulled up, and just as I was going into my spot, someone else pulled into my spot. And the lot was full, and I would have to park around back. Let me tell you, I was annoyed. Now, I wasn't really angry. I wasn't going to get into any road rage. I wasn't going to go yell at anybody. But I had begun to believe it was kind of my right. It was my expectation to be in that parking spot. And my expectation of being able to park where I wanted to park was now gone. And annoyance set in. Total annoyance. So let's think about annoyance. What kind of things annoy you? What is it that annoys you? What is it that gets under your skin? What are the little things that bug you, that irritate you, that just kind of gets your goat? Now, in general, annoyances only last a few seconds to a few minutes. They don't really take that long to get past and forget about. But there are times when it builds and strengthens and then it progresses to the next level. And remember, as we talk, we're talking about emotions, talking about what's going on inside you. And those emotions can tend to rise. So frustration then is what we call the second level of anger. And it's a little more intense feeling than annoyance. Uh, it's just a little bit higher. The thermometer tends to go up just a little bit from annoyance to frustration. And once you're frustrated, thinking begins to be affected. This is where it becomes difficult to concentrate, harder to think rationally. It's also when you can begin to think things like, oh, things will never work out. You use these global terms like never, or everything always goes wrong. It's that feeling that everything just seems to be caving in and you're just completely frustrated. This can happen when you come back to your room and you find it a mess. Say you come back to your dorm room or your apartment where you're living with your roommate, and this can be a big source of anger between roommates. You come home, you find the place a mess, and then you think he or she never cleans. And again, using those global words, never. And you have that sense of frustration. When you're frustrated, it's typically because some expectation has not been met. Now, an expectation is a belief that something will happen in the future. It's also considered a belief that someone will or should achieve something. It's that anticipation that something is supposed to take place. And it's good to recognize we all have expectations. Sometimes we have very realistic expectations, but at other times we might have unrealistic expectations. And this happens every day at work, between managers and employees, between coworkers, between spouses, between parents and children. We all assume our expectations should be met by someone else. This is where the trouble with frustration comes, and assuming that others should do certain things. And take key note of this word should. We're going to look at it more in the future as well. Now, your frustration may or may not be justified. Even when it is justified, the question will become, what do you do about it? And this comes back to your anger response. You have a choice in how you will respond to frustration, and you need to choose carefully, or you may find yourself going to the next stage of anger. The third stage of anger is simply what we call being mad. Now, mad is what we typically refer to as anger. It's that anger that begins to boil inside you. It's that anger that comes rising up and causes you to really speak your mind because you're just steamed off. It's typically at this stage where anger goes from mostly an internal feeling to external acts. You begin to do something. You begin to respond outwardly to your internal feelings. You just can't seem to keep it to yourself. If you do manage to keep it to yourself, it will inevitably show up in your body language. Your face takes on a different appearance. Try looking in the mirror sometime when you're really angry. Your face will be all distorted. And the people around you can clearly see that you're angry by your body language, maybe your crossed arms or things of that nature. You may also begin to move physically in a very different way, become more aggressive, slamming doors or tossing things around. Lots of, quote, accidents happen in this stage. Things get broken. You hurt yourself or maybe someone else. Clenching your jaw or grinding your teeth may also occur. This is often the cause of headaches in the chronically angry. They're always tensing their jaw, which can cause awful headaches. You may also become sarcastic, giving short answers to people who have nothing to do with what you're angry about at all. You may begin to raise your voice, and your tone will be noticeably different at the stage of anger that we call mad. If you have become accustomed to being angry, you may not have noticed these things. But now, as a part of the anger solution, you're going to start noticing them. In fact, I can virtually guarantee that just noticing them will begin to reduce your anger. Because when you notice them, you start to think and not just respond to emotions. You begin to activate the thinking, the rational side of your brain. Once you do that, you gain more control over your emotions. Think about this. What does a baby do when it experiences discomfort, when it's hungry, or when it's wet? The baby's brain is not yet developed. It simply responds to the emotional feelings and begins to cry, begins to scream. A baby is governed purely by emotion. By now, you and I have developed the ability to think, to be rational creatures. We do not have to be governed by our emotions, even though it is our most basic instinct. In fact, most adult outbursts are nothing more than adult temper tantrums. Most adults spanking children is not true discipline. It's about adults who are so angry at their kids that they throw a temper tantrum and engage in spanking. If you have anger control problems and you have children, you should never, ever engage in any type of corporal punishment. It's too easy to cross the line into abuse. You must first learn to manage your own behavior before you can assume to manage someone else's, even a child's. This leads us to the fourth level of anger, hostility. Hostility is being antagonistic or aggressive toward others. Hostility is by definition an outward act towards someone or something else. You should know that this is the term we use when we talk about wars and conflicts between nations. We may say that hostilities in Iraq have increased today. We know what we're talking about, armed conflict, about war. So let me ask you, are you creating your own war with people around you? Are you using your words as weapons to hurt other people? Maybe your spouse, your children, your boss, your coworkers, your roommates? This is anger when it begins to take on physical acts, acts that may even become violent. Hitting another person out of anger is an act of hostility. It could be a spouse, or it could be in a bar fight, or it could be in a school, or it could be in your dorm. I have known many people who were so angry at things in their life that they were just a fight waiting to happen, waiting for a reason to act out in hostility. Some people are so angry that they walk around every day looking for a fight to get into. Ask yourself this: what would people say about you behind your back? Would they say, "Oh, you can't talk to him, he'll always make it an argument"? If that's the case, you may be a hostile person. This is the point where most people begin to look for anger management. When something of this nature happens, people begin to look for an anger management counselor or find out about anger management. This is often also the time when people often end up getting arrested for things that they've done, and they may be referred from their probation officer for anger management. It could either be a domestic dispute that had turned physical or involved in a fight in some public place. It can often take several incidents to get to this point where you are then finally referred to anger management. It is likely that your own hostility has led you to even this program. Well, I'm glad you found it, because you don't have to live in hostility. It begins by recognizing where you are. No more excuses, no more blaming. This is your anger problem. It's time to man up and own it. This is the first step. Stop it now before you end up at the last stage that we are going to look at now. The fifth and last stage of anger is rage. This is the most extreme intensity of anger, and it can best be compared to a fire. Think about a house that's burning out of control, that it consumes everything that's beautiful within it. That's what rage will begin to do to someone's life. Rage is being completely out of control. It might be expressed in violence toward others. Someone makes them mad, as in this video, and just wants to run after them and completely just go crazy. Inanimate objects may be the source of frustration as the rage begins to come out, and breaking and destroying property or even hurting oneself. This is also a time when road rage begins to happen. Watch this incident of road rage.
Ran back to his car, he got a knife and started swinging it at me, and I was trying to not get cut.
After a few minutes, the suspect steals the victim's keys and then takes off in his own car, pinning the victim between two vehicles, sending his shoes flying into the air.
This is road rage, out of control. This is when people really get hurt. When a person is in a state of rage, they cannot be calmed down by normal relaxation techniques. It's no use to tell a raging person to just breathe or picture yourself in a safe place. In fact, statements like that may only flame the anger. If you've ever been in this place, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, let's hope you never get there. It typically takes two large officers dressed in blue and wearing guns and using handcuffs to get a raging individual under control. This is the stage when people report blacking out and don't remember what they did. It's a very, very dangerous stage and can lead to death, either of the angry person or someone around them. Above all else, we want to keep you from getting to this stage. It's much easier to keep you from getting to this stage than it is trying to calm you down from this stage. If you do find yourself in this stage, you should get away from the situation immediately and talk with someone you can trust. So let's review the 5 levels of anger for a moment, because you can easily keep yourself from getting to rage by stopping your anger at the lowest possible level. As we go forward in these lessons, you're going to learn more of these principles about how to do that. But for now, let's review these 5 levels of anger. First was annoyance. You might say, I'm a little irritated, but I feel good about myself, what's going around me, everything's okay. The second level is frustration. It's a little worse than annoyed. I'm not pleased, but I'm not totally upset. I can stay where I am, I can keep working, I can control my anger myself. The third level is when you're mad. Remember, this is what we typically refer to as, oh, he's angry. This is when I need to walk away from a bad situation, or you need to take a break. You need to get a break, you need to get away before this increases to something worse. It's still largely an internal feeling with a little externals. Then there is being hostile. My brain isn't working clearly. I might say or do something I'll be sorry for. I need to go somewhere. I need to calm down. This is when anger begins to take on physical actions and attributes. Your body language begins to show it. You begin to become tense. You begin to verbalize your anger toward others. You begin to get into arguments happen at this stage. And then the 5th stage of rage. When you want to hit someone or something or throw something, here's when you typically need someone else to help you calm down. And these are the 5 stages of anger. Counseling for anger management is one of the most helpful things that you can do for yourself. I believe all the information we present can and will reduce anger. But it does take work and it does take time. And that work is often best done with a professional. Think about this. You can go to the gym and work out on your own and you'll get a good workout with good benefits. But if you use one of the gym's personal trainers, you will do much better, as they will be there to help you with your technique, as well as motivate you to do more than you thought you'd be able to do. A professional counselor is the same way. They will personalize the tools you gain in this series and give you the best possible results. So don't hesitate to seek out counseling if you are dealing with anger issues. Now, if you've completed this and you are in Job Corps, at the bottom of the video in the remarks section should be a link to a quiz. Please go to that quiz and take it. It'll take you just a moment. And we look forward to seeing you in the next module.